was a beautiful performance. Now we are honored to welcome our first speaker of the evening, our guest speaker, Prasad Vishwanathan. A gold medalist from Chaitanya Bharati Institute of Technology, he holds an MS in Computer Science from the University of Wisconsin and a business degree from ISB Hyderabad. Mr. Vishwanathan is the first Indian with a disability to skydive from 14,000 feet and the first Asian with a disability to participate in the prestigious Antarctic Youth Ambassador Program. Beyond his personal achievements, he is also the co-founder of Sahasra, a scholarship initiative dedicated to supporting underprivileged students and supporting people with disabilities. This evening, he will speak to us about conflicts, karma, and the making of champions. Please join me in giving him a warm round of applause.
Great. Thank you so much, Purvaja. Typically in college days, we would call such an introduction as Sunta Dabba. But there are very few places in our country where we can speak the truth. And in school and college days, I couldn't because my marks and grades would be affected. And at workplace, I couldn't because my job would be affected. And it's places like these where you get that opportunity to speak a perspective on the truth, and the worst thing that can happen is you won't be invited again. And I really don't care about that. So in the spirit of not being invited again and not caring, let's keep a conversation going. I will share with you all a simple story, a story that started in the late 1980s when a couple in South India fell in love, and they were from a different caste. And a year later, I happened. And when I happened with this disability. And then there was this whole ruckus saying that because you married against the wishes of parents and because it was interreligious, intercaste, and whatever it was, is why bad karma happened, and that is why your son is born with a disability. Truth is that the doctor's operation after my birth did not go well. I ended up with a spinal cord injury for the rest of my life. I wouldn't be able to walk. And I had a neurogenic bladder, which meant I didn't have control over my bowel functions, whatever. But the beauty of it is that society started calling me a disabled person. And these days, there is a new term for it. It's called physically challenged. It's like calling a single guy romantically challenged, or Monday as differently Sunday, or a woman as a different man. Okay, so people just keep changing the label. I remember I went to a college once, and there were 3 stairs to climb to get to my class, and my professor came down and said, hey, disability is a state of mind. I mean, it is, but with that state, how do I actually climb the 3 stairs? That's the actual problem. But my life started with that. The truth of it is, in every life, there is a villain. And in my life, that villain happened to be the auntie next door to my house. And in days where there was no Orkut, no Facebook, no Twitter, she followed me. And in fact, she is the only female in my life to be following me till date. And she knows that I am at TEDx event today. And she had this great expression saying, Ayyo papam, how will you go ahead and survive with this kid? Will he able to study, and so on and so forth. By the way, this story is not about me. This story is about my father, who had a vision for me, which is the irony, isn't it? Because when you're born as an Indian, you're born in a middle class, our finances are middle class, our dreams are high class, but our execution is low class. And my father believed that the only way to get over all of these problems is to get educated. And therefore, he moved my mom out of Tamil Nadu, and we came to a whole new state called the then Andhra Pradesh and now Telangana. And he passionately believed that education is the only way out. And he tried to put me into different schools, and I tried getting out of those schools. Because of my medical condition, schools wouldn't accept me because they believed that my bladder condition is contagious and other children would get infected. So in my 10 years of schooling, I changed close to 9 schools. And each year, the academic year would start in June. By December, I will have a meeting with principal who will say, bring your father. And by April, the conversation will be on TC. And my father still believed that education is the only way out. And I, with the great God's irony, was passionate about cricket. And that's the irony, isn't it? Like, you are born with a disability, but you have this passion for cricket. And I would keep watching cricket left, right, and center. And one day, my father got angry. He was about to hit me when I was watching a cricket match, and I told my dad, Dad, please stop. I will get state first rank. Don't worry. In my class 10th, I'll get state first rank. When the results came, I did get state first, but from the bottom. Okay, no, not every story is inspiring. Okay. I got from the bottom and he got really upset at the fact that, what is this? I trusted you, and so on and so forth. And then he challenged me, saying, what do you want to do next? And I said, IAS, IPS lantidi kakunda, I want to go ahead and do a basic engineering degree, for which I will go ahead and pursue math, physics, and chemistry. And the same problem happened again when I was studying for class 11 and 12th. Effectively, the same problem. I was passionate about cricket, and I was watching this particular match, and my dad again came down and he said, this game is going to ruin your life. And he was about to hit me when I said, the batsman that is on the screen right now, the moment he gets out, I will go and study. And that happened to be a legendary match in 2001 between Rahul Dravid and VVS Lakshman playing against Australia, where Dravid batted for 2 whole days. And that was a turning point in my life, because I realized, see, in our country, there are 3 kinds of people. One is the Sachin Tendulkar type, who is gifted, is a God-level talent, and he delivers on that talent. And there's no questioning that. Then there is Rahul Dravid kinds. You don't know whether the talent exists, but when he gets out, his own team is happy, because finally the suffering is over for his own team. And I realized that when that man can stand in the sun and not score and still be there for 2 days for our country, I can sit with my physics textbook and do stuff. And thanks to that inspiration, I sat down with my physics textbook. That year on the engineering entrance exam, I got state first rank. And my mom did marketing to the entire colony. She was like, my son got state first rank, my son got state first rank, and so on and so forth. And I believed that now all the seats in the country belong to me, in the state belong to me. And the next question comes in as to what do you want to do next now that you got a state first rank. And it was a simple process. Look at how in our country we make decisions. One, through passion. Second, through process of elimination. My dad simply said, we will do Usmania University Computer Science. I asked why? Why are you deciding for me? He said, Usmania University is close to house. Computer science, you can sit on the laptop and type. I was like, beautiful. Okay. So we went to the counseling, and when I went in there, was the first ever time I witnessed a beautiful concept called reservation. If ever you watched a Christopher Nolan movie called Inception, there is a concept called dream within dream. Our government implemented that long back. It's called reservation within reservation. I was physically handicapped forward caste, but the seats belong to physically handicapped backward caste, scheduled caste, ST, BC, A, B, C, D. And suddenly, I did not have the seat that I wanted. And I looked at my father and I said, Dad, don't worry. I will go ahead and redo the exam, and maybe we'll come back to the second counseling next year. And when I came back, this was the defining moment of my life. When I came back, the auntie of the villain of my life entered, and she asked me, Babu, seat ochinda. I said, Auntie, seat teeskole. I didn't take the seat. To which she was like, Ajja, seat raleda. I said, Auntie, seat teeskoledu. In 15 minutes, auntie put a status to the whole colony. 20 aunties liked it. 30 aunties commented on it. 15 aunties shared it. And by the next day, the entire colony knew that I did not have a seat, although I secured state first rank. And I couldn't take it. I was just mentally, like you all are going to speak on the concept of mental health. That is the lowest I ever hit. And that particular day, I told my dad, I can't wait one more year. So I took the nearest college that I could go ahead and get, and I entered the CBIT college. Thanks to God's blessings and mom's extraordinary faith and familial support, I managed to top the college. And then I expressed a beautiful wish that I told my dad one day that I want to go ahead and study in America. And he laughed. So I told my dad, Dad, I am serious. Then he got serious and I laughed. And effectively, after a few minutes, I told my mom, given that I'm a gold medalist at college, I want to go and study abroad. And she said, how could you leave? How would you live? And in 15 minutes, the conversation was escalating. So I spoke in anger to my mom. When I spoke in my anger to my mom, Dad got angry. When Dad gets angry, Dad shouts on mom. When Dad shouts on mom, mom cries. When mom cries, sister cries. When sister cries, Dad shouts even more. This is called avalanche effect. Okay, and when that avalanche effect happened in my life, I just did not know what to do, but I insisted. I kept the conversation going at that time at my house. I showed my mom YouTube videos. I said, the country abroad is accessible. I can survive. Please trust me. Step by step, I took baby steps to convince them. And finally, at my own risk, I applied, I got a scholarship. I went into the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and there, a beautiful concept happened. And let me close with that. As I was studying there at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I did not know. For me, the idea of America back then was what I saw on MTV. I didn't realize that in America it snows for 6 months and it snows more for the remaining 6 months. When I first landed, I thought it was Antarctica. Okay, and it was an absolute shocker of my life, and I just didn't know what to do. But I kept my focus on my education. And one fine day, even as I was very, very low, and I was feeling very bad that there was so much criticism for me having gone abroad to study, leaving my family behind, the struggles that I faced, the auntie literally ragging my mom every other day. I wondered, what is it that I can go ahead and do to send out a message to people that if you have a dream, you need to keep following it. So I made a fantastic video showing what are all the facilities that are available for people with disabilities abroad as compared with in India. And I put it on YouTube. 2 people watched it, me and my friend. Nobody cared about it. And then I went and dug deep and wondered, why is it that in our country people with disabilities are looked down? Why is it that we are constantly associating disability with stigma? And that took me to this man called Krishna. And he wrote a famous book called the Bhagavad Gita, or he authored, so to say. And in that, when I was reading, I read this beautiful line saying that life is composed of 5 elements, namely sky, earth, water, fire, and air. Only a person with a strong spinal cord and with chakras activated can experience the 5 elements. I was like, I took it personal offense to that. And I really wanted to express the chakras, so to say. And that particular day, after I read the whole article and I was going back to my home at the university, I saw this ad saying, you can take a flight, get up to 14,000 feet, jump out of the flight, and they would call it skydiving. Now, coming in from a middle-class background, I had never missed celebrating my mom's birthday. And I thought that was the first time I was out of the country, and that was the first occasion I was missing my family. And I thought it's a cool idea to get into a flight, jump out, get in the middle of the sky, fall down, and in the video, wish my mom a happy birthday. So in an emotional moment, in a very emotional moment, I paid. I jumped because I paid. Otherwise, my father would have pushed me out, knowing how much it can. In the entire 9.5-minute video, this is the only moment I smiled. So I screenshotted that face. And when I landed, my friend had enough common sense to put an Indian flag in my hand. And together we said, this is for the cause of disabled people in India. That video went viral. And people were like, a person with disability jumped out of a plane. If he can do that, then you can do anything. And that video started going viral. Amir Khan watched that on Satyamev Jayate. He invited me over to the show. And then the whole concept blew up. And I realized that in our country, keeping the conversation going is one thing, but messaging it the right way, in a way that it appeals to people, to their inner conscience, is more important. Therefore, I started with Sky on skydiving. For Earth, I went to Grand Canyon. I took a helicopter, went inside the Grand Canyon, lived there for 7 days. What happened? Nothing. I just felt lesser oxygen, and my manager got upset. So when it came down to water, it was a big challenge. My initial idea was that we go scuba diving, but my friend said that is what honeymoon couples do. So he said, let's think big. When you have to take a risk, let's take maximum risk. So as we were ideating, my friend had this idea saying that the Pacific Ocean comes from this side, the Atlantic Ocean comes from the other side. At the intersection, let's jump. And I initially laughed at that idea, but slowly as the idea developed, I started Googling on the person who did that before. This is Sir Robert Swan, who was the first person to walk to the South Pole. I wrote him an email saying, why did you even walk to the South Pole? I mean, what sort of craziness has got onto you that you just woke up one day and decided I will walk towards Antarctica? I mean, are you married? Are you trying to escape a marriage here? What is happening? To which he said, no, I walked just because it's there. And I just didn't understand what he meant by that. But nevertheless, I asked him, on the next expedition to Antarctica, will you take me? And he said, as long as you do the fundraising, I don't have a problem taking you. So I spoke to him over email, convinced, raised the funds. From here, I took a flight to Dubai, Dubai to Brazil, Brazil to Argentina. And in Argentina, across the Andes Mountains, I was asked to train for 30 days just so that I can survive in Antarctica and we can estimate what could be the challenges. And if you look at this picture, that is a very challenging, we spent 30 days in Antarctica, in Argentina, across the Andes Mountains. And if you look at this, we did a classic mistake. The mistake was throughout my training, I was using my crutches. But in Antarctica, I would have to wear very thick gloves. And if I wear gloves, that means I cannot hold my crutches. So all the training that I went through was a waste of time. So when we reached Antarctica, I decided to take revenge on the Britishers. I told them that we carried your country for 200 years. You better carry me into the continent because all that funding that I have raised, that's not going to go waste. So this Britisher lifted me onto the South Pole. We dragged a sledge, and finally I became the first Indian and Asian to eat curd rice and avocado pickle at the Antarctic continent. And when I came back, and on Shivratri day, by the way, at the intersection of the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, I took a jump, and again I said, this is for the cause of people with disabilities. And when I came back to the country and the media was all over, they asked me, the very first question the media asked me was, Sai, was it cold in Antarctica? Yeah, obviously, that is not a conversation to keep going. Please understand that in our country, look back at this, in our country, I have been asked, let me close off with this. I remember this profound moment in my college when I graduated as a gold medalist. There was a junior and her mother who came down to me and she asked me, are you Sai? And I said, yes, I am. Last I know, I am Sai. And she said, the principal sent us to you. And my daughter has this disability, and apparently you studied in this college and you got a gold medal. Is that true? And I was like, yes. Then she looked at her daughter and she said, look at this guy. He has suffered. He climbed 3 floors, okay, and he has achieved. So you also suffer, okay? You also climb the 3 floors and you will also achieve. And that's the saddest part of our country. In our country, the definition of inspiration is when someone suffers, we look at that suffering, and when they overcome the suffering, they become heroes. That's what Tollywood, Bollywood, Hollywood teaches. Inspiration is not overcoming suffering. True inspiration is asking why the suffering is there in that first place. I went back to my college and I asked generation after generation, why are people suffering in order to climb the 3 floors? Sir, can't we go ahead and put an elevator? To which he did a cost-benefit analysis and he said, Sai, there are close to about 3 people or 4 people with disabilities who come to the college once every 4 years. I cannot change the whole infrastructure for it. So when I went to another place called the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, and the wheelchair was not allowed into the temple at that place, I said, there are so many people with wheelchairs who are coming into Tirupati. Why don't you allow wheelchairs into the Devasthanam? And they said, wheelchair is a Vahan, and you cannot visit the Lord on a Vahan. I was like, this is not Ferrari. Okay, this is a bloody wheelchair. The logic ends there. The logic ends at colleges also. But it was very, very important for me to put the message across that true inspiration is constantly asking, why is the suffering up there? And how do we message it differently? And the most important realization that in order to take a problem to the public, you need to make them laugh. If you blame people, if you make them angry, if you make them a victim or a perpetrator of a crime, they will not be partners to your solution. You make people laugh, you make people smile, you make them see the absurdity of the problem that exists. That if you add to the flow of your conversation, that is the beginning of the change. I wish every student here would take inspiration not in overcoming suffering. I hope you never get to face any suffering. But if you see any, ask why is the suffering there in the first place. Show people what is absurd about the problem. Make them smile about it. Add them as partners to the solution. And hopefully one day you'll get on stage and share your own solution. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. See you all soon.